Joining us now here on In the Circle, she is the head coach at South Dakota State as they get set to start conference play. And that is, of course, I speak of Krista Wood, who joins us now here for the first time at In the Circle, starting her 7th season at South Dakota State. Coach, glad you could join us. Does it seem like it's been 7 seasons?
No, it's actually gone way faster than that. I actually was kind of reflecting and I was like, dang, it's been 7 years. That's crazy. Time flies.
It has been fly. We'll talk about your journey there, but let's talk about this season for you. Your team are off to a really good start this year. What has it been like? Obviously, everybody, it's a unique season. There were so many questions up in the air, but you're 15-4 going into starting conference play this upcoming weekend on the road. What is it, the first 19 games? What have you learned about your team?
Yeah, we're really young. We have a lot of energy. We've been pretty resilient throughout the whole preseason. Our kids are working really hard. When we get back on and off the field, they're very focused. They really care about each other. We found different ways to win different games, whether that's, the hitters coming through or the pitching or the defense. I think they've shown a lot of fight and a lot of, grit and just trying to find different ways to win games. And I've been really impressed with, just the consistency of what you see when you see our team on the field. Doesn't matter who's across the dugout or, who's in the other dugout, what the score is. We always are trying to play just our game in the Jackrabbit way.
The Jackrabbit way. I like that. What is you look at the schedule you had so far. You've played a very difficult schedule. I don't know if people realize that, and we can get into that. You opened the season in Cedar Falls, Iowa. You played Iowa State, who's in the top 25 in that tournament among other teams. You beat Oregon State up in Colorado in a tournament there. You beat Colorado State a couple times there. You beat Wichita State, which is playing really good softball right now. You beat Kansas at their place a couple times. Just talk about your schedule. How much was it affected with depending on other teams that maybe you thought you were going to play that had to bow out for various reasons, but still you were able to get a tough non-conference schedule despite the climate that we're in.
Yeah, and we opened up at UNI, like you said, and that's always a tough weekend. He always gets good teams in there, and Iowa State was a late get into that tournament, which was cool. We ended up playing the first game of the season and we lost 4-2. And I thought we played really well. It just, really just didn't fall our way. We maybe just didn't swing the bats quite as well as we wanted to that very first game. But then, Drake and UNI are always good teams. Butler, who played us scrappy down at Madeira Beach last year. So that was a tough weekend. And then, that next weekend we were supposed to go down to Texas and play in North Texas, and that's when they got the big snowstorm and ice storm and all that stuff. And down there we were supposed to play Texas, Oklahoma State, Kansas, so we had another tough weekend down there. And like I said, it got snowed out, and then we were going to try to pick something up the next week because that was our bye week. So we sat idle for about 2.5 weeks, which kind of concerned me a little bit going out to Colorado because, practices were a little tough. The energy just wasn't there. And, when you're supposed to be playing and you're not playing, it's sometimes tough to practice, especially when we've been practicing since September, But man, when we stepped on the field at Colorado, the energy was there and our kids were just thankful and just getting the opportunity to be back on the field with their teammates and have an opportunity to play. You could really feel the energy. And, we had Oregon State that first game and Grace pitched a no-hitter against them. So that kind of sparked us and the bats came alive. And, Colorado State out there, they're a good team, make the NCAA tournament. And I thought we pitched well and hit well and played good defense. I think, out in Colorado, we maybe had one error out there in the 5 games that we played. So our defense was pretty solid. And it was a little nerve-wracking because we got out there early and we practiced on dirt for the first time since we'd seen in fall. And our practice was a little rough. We had a couple kids in tears and just, pulling their heads a little bit as they would do when you get out on the dirt for the first time. But they settled in pretty well. And I said, it's the same game, just it'll slow down. And they did just fine. And then, going to Wichita State and playing them at their place, that was a really good doubleheader. That was a really good split for us, playing a team like that with big hitters, great pitching. good defense. I mean, when they beat Oklahoma State last week, so they're a super good ball club. And then, that was the long road trip we were on. We went out to Colorado, we drove over to Wichita, and then we went to Kansas. That was a 10-day road trip for us. And, we ended up beating Kansas in a 3-game series. A big, 10-inning game that the score was really high. And then a couple
15-11, yeah.
Yeah, a couple closer games. But, they matched our energy. Kansas had a lot of energy as well. And I thought we matched up really well with them, and we played hard. And, and it's all about what we can learn from each win, what we can learn from each loss, and how we can get better and how we can continue to grow as a team and individually, so that at the end of the year, we can say we gave it everything and that we're doing our best, because obviously our ultimate goal is to get to the NCAA tournament and win the Summitt League.
Now, the Cedar Rapids tournament, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the one that's indoors, right?
Yeah, it's in the dome, and they played on their football field.
Yes. Because I remember watching that tournament, because I have the ESPN Plus, and I watched your team there. Describe for those, to play in an indoor, how is that a big deal, no little deal? Describe that. Like, that's not the usual environment you're used to. Obviously, They do it because the weather in the Midwest, you have to, that's the only way you can get games in. But I've seen games being played there. It's so unique. What's that like to play in an indoor facility, stadium like that?
What's cool is that you're going to get to play. Like, you don't have to worry about weather and all that kind of stuff. It is something that you kind of have to mentally prepare your kids for, because you're playing on the football field with all these football lines, and there's this and that. And so our infielders sometimes have a hard time tracking grounders and getting reads and where their depth is in the infield and stuff like that. But it's always fun to play opening weekend. And whether you're playing indoors or outdoors, I think it's just fun to play in general. And it's an easy trip for us, a short trip, a cheap trip, and we know we're going to get to play. So that's one reason why we chose to go there the last, 4 or 5 years for opening weekend.
The thing that impresses me about your team, and that's an example there, I think your team is very versatile, could play in different elements. You could play a low-scoring game, or you could play in a shootout like you've had to as well. Is that an accurate description of your team so far, that you've got multiple ways of winning games and multiple ways of playing?
Yeah, and I think that's what we kind of prepare our kids for when we're working on our championship mindset stuff is, we have to control the controllables. There's only, don't worry about the things you can't control and worry about the things that you can control, your effort, your attitude, things like that. But we kind of prepare them every weekend going into where we're going to play, what we think the circumstances may be and how to mentally prepare them. But again, like we say, you can win a game in the first inning, you can win it in the 7th inning, you can win it in the 5th inning, and there's different ways to win the game. But if we put ourselves in good situations and, give ourselves, base runners to score, or we pitch well, or we play good defense, we're going to be putting ourselves in those situations to come out on top.
Let's talk about your team right now. Let's start at the pitching staff. And a player that I saw in person a year ago when you were playing in Madeira Beach in Florida, Grace Glancer, who is a stud. You mentioned her start this year. She's 6-2, 2.87 ERA. She's thrown 8 complete games for you already. You've used her. What makes her so unique? Because last year it looked like she was headed for a monster year before the season got kind of there, and arguably the best pitcher in the Summit was going to head towards that direction. But She was tremendous last year. She had 74 strikeouts, a 12-2 record in 2020, in 13 starts and 14 appearances. What makes her so good?
Well, first of all, she's a competitor. She can throw 3 different speeds. She's got a fast speed, a medium speed, and a slower speed. So the thing about her is her ball moves, it spins a lot, it moves in the zone, out of the zone, and she's just hard to time up because she does throw different speeds. So she's somebody that can go up, down, in, out, fast, slow. And so, if you can kind of get into a rhythm with her pitching and she's feeling comfortable about what she's doing, she's tough to hit.
Very tough to hit. That's an understatement. Describe the rest of the pitching staff behind her, because obviously she's, you met your workhorse, but she's not the only pitcher, and especially in a year like this when you're playing a bunch of games at once, and you've got a deep staff here. You got a 265 as a staff. Describe the rest of the staff here,
so
you've got to step up here.
We have a freshman from Wayne, Nebraska, and she throws really hard. Probably our velocity pitcher, who did really well opening weekend again in the UNI tournament. She throws curve, screw rise with some velocity. Then we have Kendrick Kennard, who was a Summitt League first or second teamer a couple years ago, helped us get to the NISC tournament 2 years, who's, more of a drop ball changeup pitcher, who will still do a lot of work for us now that we've moved to a 4-game series in the Summitt League. Then we got a left-hander from here in Brookings that, is kind of our middleman pitcher or a relief pitcher. She spins the ball pretty well. She played on the same summer ball team as Grace. So those two are a good mix together. And then we have a senior, Olivia Douglas, who again actually has revved up her velocity, can throw up, down, in, out, a change of speed. And then Morgan Demars, who's a sophomore, who again I think is really developing into a good pitcher as well, just being able to go north and south, east and west, and change of speed. So we're 6 deep in the pitching, and I think they're all very, very talented, and they all bring their own twist to how they can help our staff.
Is this the deepest staff you've had since you've been there?
Yeah, this is the deepest I've had, where our goals as a pitching staff are pretty, I think they're pretty high. We have some high goals for them, and I think they can achieve those.
Offensively, what has stood out to your team as some of the players? You're hitting .302 as a team. Who are some of the players that have really lead your offense?
Yeah, I would say right now our 2 slappers at the top, Peyton Doherty and Emma Osmondson, they've been doing a great job. Peyton's a junior, and Emma Osmondson, who can really slap for power, have been leading our offense at the top. Kylie Halverson, I think she might be leading the Summitt League in home runs. She's been solid for us. Kelsey Lennox, again, she's our 4-hitter, has been coming up in some clutch situations for us, getting some runs when we need it. We have a freshman that's hitting in the 9th spot, who got Summitt League Player of the Week a couple weeks ago, Rosalind Carrillo. But I'll tell you what, the cool thing about our offense is, we tend to, when we're doing really well, we're scoring every inning. And up and down our lineup, I feel like we have different people stepping up in different games. And yeah, some people have maybe been a little bit more consistent, but as a team, I feel like we're hitting really well consistently up and down the lineup.
You mentioned Kylie. She's got the 8 home runs this season. Last year in the shortened season, she hit .406, which led the team, but she had only 2 home runs. Where does this power come from? Has it always been there, and it's just one of those things that's clicking? What's been different with her this year compared to last year?
Yeah, I definitely think through quarantine, all that, she just came back. She's stronger. She's been lifting. She's been doing stuff, and a little bit more confident at, not just, she's hit a bunch of her home runs with 2 strikes. And so I just think that she's a little bit more confident. Now, she's not getting maybe as good at pitches to hit. Maybe it could be why her batting average might be down just a tad, but she is coming up in situations that we need her to produce those runs.
No question. It's tremendous. 8 home runs among the nation's leaders, not just in the Summitt.
Yeah.
And that's huge because you got the slap hitters and it sets her up. And as a result, I would imagine she's going to be one of those, too, that helps the other hitters get pitches because teams will probably start shying away from pitching her. That's going to create opportunities for your other hitters.
Yep. Yeah, she's very smart. She's one of those hitters. And one thing I gave her props for last year, she stays really composed at the plate no matter her count. And, she doesn't let maybe a bad called strike get to her. She's just has that head on her. And I told her that as a freshman that, that's unique. It's really cool to see that she as a freshman can do that. And she's carried that over. And I do think that helps her and be in her success.
We're speaking with Krista Wood, head coach at South Dakota State here on In the Circle. Take me to last year, because last year your team was playing well. I remember I mentioned I watched you all at Madeira Beach beat Iowa in that tournament. You were playing good softball, 15-8, and I thought going into after that weekend, I left there thinking you might be the favorites in the Summitt League. Obviously, we know what happened a few days later. The season came to an abrupt end, obviously with COVID and everything. But from your perspective, what was that like? Because you're playing in Florida, number one, when all this is going on, right? And then all of a sudden, that moment, the season came to an abrupt end. What was that like to go through?
Yeah, it was tough. We were playing good, and we were a young, vibrant team. And not that you would know this, but the year before we graduated 9 seniors. So I wasn't really sure what to expect from this young team and where we would stand, come preseason of that year. And things were just starting to click for us. And we were starting to kind of solidify, a lineup, and Grace was pitching well and stuff like that. And I mean, I thought we had a really good chance last year of winning the Summitt League because we were, pitching well and playing good defense, and obviously offensively we were doing great. But, it really is been it was a weird, time where it was just like unreal that it was happening. Like you kept thinking like, hey, maybe we'll be back in 2 weeks, or, and then as time kind of kept going on, you're like, yeah, this is really done for the year. Like this is really happening. And we just had to keep calling our kids because, we came home from Florida and we sent everybody home for 2 weeks because we thought, we had caught wind at one point that we were only going to be out for 2 weeks and then potentially bring people back. And when we had to tell them, it's over. I mean, I think people had a hard time with it. The good thing is they were home with their families and could, have that support, that, moral support from them. But it was just weird. Like it's even thinking about it right now, it's just weird thinking right now. I was driving, in today, I'm like, a year ago today, I'm sitting at home, like afraid to go outside because, we didn't know, you just didn't know what was going on. And everyone thought even, touching things and all that was, that you could get it. So it's just crazy to think about that we did that a year ago and where we are now today.
It really is. And I'm fascinated. Did you have concern at any point? Like, I don't know if we're going to be able to play this season, or if we are, we're going to be limited on what we could do just because of finances, travel, whatever. And you mentioned the Summit's you guys were going to a 4-game conference here. So I'm sure that's part of the conversation that how that happened. Take me through that. Did you ever have any doubts about that?
I didn't until football got canceled in the fall. And I was like, ooh, that's not good. Like, it was like, because I absolutely thought for sure football would go off in the fall. Like, I just didn't think that, yeah. And so when that got canceled, I was like, I just can't imagine that, that we would be able to play, like with budgetarily also, and then just with COVID, because I mean, they're not going to cancel basketball. Then when basketball got off to a good start and stuff like that in November, whatever it was, I felt like the light started showing in the tunnel a little bit, like, okay, I think maybe we can do. And then they started putting out a football schedule for the spring because our football team's playing right now. And then, then we got through the first weekend and I'm like, okay, now we've been through a few more weekends where I'm like, okay, now I feel like we're going to get through this spring. And we might have some bumps in the road, whether it's a team that we play or whether it's our team, but I think we can really stick together and try to be resilient through it as much as we can.
You're right. And you're mentioning football. That was, of course, the FCS that decided to push it back to the spring.
Yeah.
You got a lot of sports going on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. So our administration is over where we got football going, soccer, volleyball. I mean, every sport really is going. So wrestling just ended. So, I mean, and now, men's and women's basketball, if March Madness, if, our women's team lost out yesterday in the NCAA tournament, now they're done. But I mean, in the month of January and February, it was wild, and even in the month of February when actually football was playing games, and so were we, and baseball and everybody.
As coaches on campus, do you all even like talk to each other? Because you're all going through the same thing, right? You're going through this like, man, this is different. This is weird. How do you navigate through this? I would imagine, do you pick each other's brains a little bit?
Yeah, we have a lot, especially, I would pick basketball's brain about how are you guys traveling on the bus? How are you guys handling hotels with parents? And are you allowing them to talk to their parents in the lobby? And how are you getting food? And because, normally it's just everything's different. So I was able to kind of talk to, some of the coaches, volleyball, basketball that were playing before us and traveling before us to kind of get their feedback on, how things were going with, all the COVID restrictions.
So take me now, when you as coaches, you're discussing what to do here, because I remember in winter, there were some conferences that were talking, well, maybe we should just go conference only. And then a few did. The Big Ten in particular decided to go conference only. You did not, your conference did not. Which has paid off because you've gotten some great games. You've been able to travel. Take me through that process and that decision and the conversations that took place and the decision that let's just try to play a 4-game conference series, but we can still play non-conference.
Yeah, I think it came down to just, all the schools kind of were able to say, I think everybody took a weekend out of, due to budgetarily, like, so instead of playing 56, you're playing more like 50. And then at first, we just moved to a 4-game series probably like a week and a half ago. We wanted to keep the conference tournament because that was something else that they wanted to potentially nix. Some leagues nixed it. But we all kind of said, like, if we're able to play preseason, we only have 7 teams in the league that have softball. And so, like, if you're just playing, everybody 3 games or everybody 4 games, that's only 24 games. And so we just thought that it would be in our benefit to be able to, if financially and COVID reasons, which we thought we could, get out and play regionally, we did not fly anywhere this year. We just, normally we go down to Madeira Beach or Florida and stuff like that. And other schools in the league did, but we chose not to do that. And that's how we're kind of making it work. So every school kind of was able to make it work however they were able to make it work. And some of the schools had flights that were needed to be used because they didn't get to use them last year because the season got cut short. So the airlines were going to say, okay, you can use it this year. So they wanted to use their flight. So everyone was kind of in a different boat, and we all understood that. So we were kind of like, let's just keep it at 3 games. Let's keep our conference tournament. And then come March, we'll see if people have lost games and where you're at with games. Well, there's been enough people that have either lost games, just a few games here and there due to weather or COVID, that we were able to make a 4-game series because it doesn't really cost you much. It's just another game of umpire. No travel expense for that. So we just thought, like, we need to get out there and play. We lost all last year, so let's just get 1 extra game in.
Nothing wrong with playing more games. That's a good problem to have, right? Play more softball.
It'll be interesting, though, playing 4 games. That 4th game could get ugly with some teams, when you get down to the, pitching staff-wise. So it'll be interesting.
Well, and that's why we talked about your pitching staff being deep. You're going to need all those arms in a 4-game series this year.
Yep.
How is the conference tournament? Is that going to be altered at all, or is that still what's
No, they're going to keep it at 6.
Okay.
It's going to be in Fargo. Yep. So that'll all be the same as far as I know.
What you mentioned the league, obviously your RPI is in the 30s as we talk. So your schedule is working. You're winning games. That's that takes care of itself. You want to win the league, not even worry. But is there some pride there that you're playing a schedule not just to kind of get your name out there, that, hey, we can play with anybody. I know North Dakota State, I've talked to Coach Mueller when they've scheduled, they've tried to do that, hey, we're not just we can play with anybody and we're going to play our tough teams, get ready for the league, but take notice that we're for real and that we should be getting recognized more than maybe we are getting recognized.
Yeah, and I think it's important preseason to have that balanced schedule, because you want to build confidence. You want to see different people play, and being able to go out, challenge yourself, and yet put yourselves in good situations, whether it's, like going down to Wichita State. That was huge for us. We've never been down there to play, but I knew that was going to be a great challenge for us. And if we were able to, win 1 game, that's a huge step for our program to go and beat a team that, that is that good. And so just kind of giving ourselves those challenges in preseason to see where we match up and where we can be. And again, if we just let preseason be easy, then we're not, when adversity hits during conference season, we're not going to know how to handle it. Where we've put ourselves in some adverse situations and been able to, either bounce back from a loss or bounce back in another inning to answer back and to be able to do those things. Because you don't want to get beat up all preseason, and you don't want to have a cakewalk all preseason. You got to have a good balance.
I agree. We're speaking with Krista Wood, head coach at South Dakota State here on In the Circle. What got you interested in getting into coaching softball? Well, you obviously were a great player. You're a national champion, as we'll talk about in a little bit. But what made you decide after you were done playing softball to get into coaching?
Well, first of all, my dad was and actually is going back. He retired and they wanted him to come back. Was our high school baseball coach. Since I grew up on the baseball field. I was the bat girl for the high school baseball team. Played baseball when I was younger because there was no softball at first, and so I kind of grew up on the baseball field, loving it. Got into softball. Was able to play for my high school, and then obviously I would go across the river in Nebraska and play competitively in the summer because Iowa high school is in the summer. So I was kind of playing for 2 teams in the summer just to get more games in. Went to Nebraska-Omaha, had a great, great career there and great teams, were, won a national title. And then I got done playing, and I majored in physical education, K through 12. And so my goal was to be a teacher and a high school coach, like just do what my parents do. My parents are both teachers. My dad's a teacher and coach. And so I graduated in December of, I don't know, it was like 2003 or 4. And there was no teaching jobs available. So I ended up going up to St. Cloud State and being their GA pitching coach for Coach Uren up at St. Cloud. And I just fell in love with like coaching part of it. And I was like, this is really cool seeing this side of it and actually teaching. And I actually thought, I really like coaching pitchers. Like, I actually wish I would have given lessons while I was a pitcher, because I think I would have actually been even a better pitcher then, but so I graduated. I excelled I still wanted to coach, and I thought I would coach high school. So I excelled my master's degree, and I got it done in a year and a half. So I graduated in May, thinking that I would find a teaching job and a coaching job. And it was until my parents were like, you should really look into potentially, coaching at the collegiate level if you really like it. And I was like, there's no way, like, no one's going to hire me. I'm like 25 years old, and all I was a GA, like whatever. And applied for high school jobs, and I also applied for coaching jobs. And I was lucky enough that Eric Show at Wayne State, who was the AD at the time, took a chance on me at 25 years old, no really, experience besides being a GA, and took over that program that was, really in the gutter, and, was able to kind of make it my own.
Wow. So that's because you couldn't find a teaching job. Have you ever thought about what if there was a teaching job, and what would you be right now?
I'd probably be a teacher and a high school coach. I'd probably be in the Omaha area doing that, is probably what would have happened.
That is amazing. That's an amazing story. Now, you mentioned you played at Nebraska-Omaha. How did you end up there? You're an Iowa native, but you go end up at Nebraska-Omaha. What was it that drew you to go there?
Being from a small town, I'm from Missouri Valley. It's like a town of 2,000 people. Going to a big university probably wasn't what I really wanted to do. And, Nebraska-Omaha is about 30 minutes away from my hometown. UNO had a great tradition of, softball. And, I was only really recruited by, 2 or 3 schools. And I just kind of fell in love with, I'd been to their camps and watched them play growing up. And I don't know, recruiting is very different now than it was back when I was playing. And also the other big factor in me getting to Nebraska-Omaha was my summer ball coach was the assistant coach at UNO. So Michaela Wesla-Hotek at the time, she's the head softball coach at Bellevue University now, but she was our summer ball coach. And so she was a big factor in getting to play for her, at the next level. So she was actually my coach for 8 years, because I played 4 years of summer ball with her and then 4 years at Nebraska-Omaha.
You had a Hall of Fame career. You just got inducted to Nebraska-Omaha Hall of Fame in 2020. First of all, how did you get that news? And then with COVID and everything, did they do a ceremony, or are you still waiting on that?
I'm still waiting. Yep. Okay. I just was down there, and they, had pushed it back to potentially this spring. And then now they just said, like, we really want to do it and do it right. We want your families to be there and all that. So we're going to get you in, but I'm assuming it'll be this fall or next spring.
Well, I hope it's fall, because spring's a little busy for you.
I know. Well, yeah, I know, but it is what it is. I guess I'll have to make whatever work, hopefully.
But what did that, when you got the word about that, what did it mean to you? You had a great career there, won 106 games, the most in program history. What did it mean when you got that word?
It was, it was an honor, and I was super excited because, I take pride in it just because, of all the people I played with and all the people that played defense behind me. And it was an honor just to be inducted into that Hall of Fame, because I know what people go in there. And it's really cool because our 2001 national championship team got inducted into the Hall of Fame about, 5 or 6 years ago. And that was really cool to see everybody and do that, but go into the Hall of Fame. But I just think it's awesome because it kind of just, it's cool because your hard work kind of pays off, and it's recognized after the fact, because 106 games, I didn't think about it at the time, but that's a lot of wins, really, because it's hard to see that nowadays.
Take me through, you mentioned the 2001 national title. You pitched that title game, a 2-hit shutout, 5 strikeouts. You beat Lewis University 4-0. What do you remember about that game? What's the first thing that pops in your mind when I bring that up?
Yeah, I just remember my teammates. And I mean, I just think we stepped on the field and we knew we were going to win. Like, there was no question that we were going to lose that game. And I just remember that before the last out, and I think it might be a scene in A League of Their Own. They're like, one more, whatever. And they were doing that. And then it was funny because we had practiced winning the national championship at practice and throwing our gloves in the air and kind of dogpiling at practice. But then when we actually won it, we all like stared at each other and we were like, should we throw our gloves in the air still? Like, we've already done this a million times. So it was really cool. But I'll tell you what was really crazy is, like, you know, you usually end your season with a loss. I mean, and it was kind of like, okay, what's next? And you won and you're like, okay, well, season's over. Like, this is crazy because you know, unlike most teams, like, you end up losing in the regional or losing in the conference tournament, and everyone's crying because it's over and you lost, and now everyone's crying because we're happy and we won, but now we're wondering who we play next, and that was it. So that was really weird. That was crazy.
It's 20 years ago.
I know.
Your anniversary.
I know. Isn't that nuts?
Do you stay in touch with, I'm assuming, with some of the teammates
there? Yeah. I mean, there's still a good group that's in the Omaha area. It's hard with my job and, you know, recruiting, and then, you know, traveling and all that. I do get back and I stay in touch with them. And if I got in touch with some of them now, I mean, we wouldn't even miss a heartbeat talking, I don't feel like. But it's good to see them. I see them around the ball field sometimes, whether some of them are still coaching high school ball. Some of them have kids that might be playing against my nephew or whatever it may be. But I mean, we're really close, and we have something that we all share that's really special, that, you know, in common. So I think it's really cool to see them.
As a coach now, I'm curious, when you look back at that team, if you scouted them, what made that team special? Why was that team the one that put it over the hump as a national champion?
Yeah, you know, the thing about it is, you know, and all the teams that I played on 4 really talented teams there. And I'm not saying that was the least talented team there, but we really, really believed in each other. Everyone accepted their roles. We cared about each other. And we were it was just crazy because we had, like, said, this is our goal, this is what we're going to do. Because my freshman year, I remember distinctly because we had conference tournament in Omaha. And I didn't really know, you know, I'm a freshman, I don't really know what's going on, but we win the conference tournament and we were so excited, and it was like the best thing ever. We won the conference tournament. And weirdly enough, my 4 years at UNO, all 4 years we played regionals in Fargo, which was crazy, even though we were neck and neck with them always, NDSU. Well, we go up to Fargo my freshman year and we went 0-2. And I remember the upperclassmen saying, like, this isn't cool. Like, we literally celebrated winning the conference tournament like the end of our season. Like, that was what our end goal was. And then when we got to regionals, we kind of just dropped the ball. So I remember the upperclassmen that next year were like, we're not going to be satisfied with winning the conference this year. We want to win the national title. We don't just want to go to the World Series. We want to win it. So it was we had a really good group of seniors that year, and, you know, they really wanted it, and I thought they were great leaders for all of us.
If Krista Wood, the head coach, would be in the same room with Krista Wood, the player, how would that go? They get along? Are they the same, different?
They're very different. Even my first year's coaching, I'm very different than I am today. I was kind of a bulldog, you know, but off the field, my teammates loved me, that type of thing. You know, I probably would have been a pain in the butt. I think it was a pain in the butt to the coaches. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I think my coaches loved me because they knew that I could help them win, but I think they also wanted to kick me in the butt a lot of times too. So, but yeah, I mean, I've grown a lot as a person, and even as a coach, from my first year coaching at Wayne to now. I mean, it's funny because my alumni from Wayne will still come watch me coach, and they're like, "Coach, you are soft now." Like, holy cow! Like, they just think that, you know, and I've just evolved and changed. And, you know, I think every year you change and what things become important and how you coach different players, and kids change and all that. But I know my former players think that I'm soft now. So
I would say it's more of adapting, right? Because that's as a coach now, right?
Yes.
You have to adapt the players at different times. I mean, it's about adapting, you know, to the players you have and all that.
Yep. Very much true. I mean, in every team, every year, you got to adapt. I mean, your chemistry of your team is going to be different every year.
You mentioned at Wayne State, you took over a program. They won 10 games the year prior to your arrival there. You turned them into a winner. They turned them into a postseason team. How are you able to be so successful at Wayne State there as you got that opportunity?
Yeah. A lot of people ask me that question, and, I was young and I just put my nose to the ground and just started working and got kids to really believe in what they could do and what we could do as a team, and started working fundamentals. I think that was big, and really practicing with intent, and then building a culture. I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, if your culture, you could have the best team in the world, but if your culture is not solid, you're going to be in trouble. And so that's something that I've really, really, worked on here when I took over this program, was finding what culture fits this program here. I'd found it right away at Wayne, and, kids bought in, and then we just kept going. We just kept trucking through it and get to 3 NCAA tournaments. And, I was there for 8 years and had 8 winning seasons. And I was lucky enough to find kids that would buy in and that would want to come to Wayne, Nebraska and play for me. And they worked hard, and I thought it was, it was awesome. I mean, I was lucky to get kids that would buy in right away. It was crazy because my very first year there, I only had about 10 or 11 kids, because we had a bunch of kids quit like right away that first year. Like, what? This is practice. We have to practice every day. Like, we have to lift. Like, there was just a lot of things. And so I'm like, if this isn't for you, then leave, because we don't need that. So we had about 11 or 12 kids going into the spring, which was crazy because we had to hold like a tryout, and we had like a rugby kid that would show up and run bases sometimes. But, we go down, usually spring break is the first trip for Division II. Like, you go down to spring break and that's your first trip. Well, I had no parents came on that trip, because parents were like, I'm not wasting my money to go watch you guys pretty much lose, which is what they did in the past. And we were 9, I think we went like 8-2 down there, or 9, I don't know what we did, but we won down there. And parents were calling the kids being like, what's going on? Like, did you guys really win? Like, like talking to them like that. And they're like, yeah, we're winning. Like, it's great. It's crazy, whatever. So they were like, our team was just having so much fun and we were winning. And then we come back to Wayne, and like a week later we had our first home game. And I could tell like the vibe was very different before the game. Like, they weren't chatting, they weren't talking. And I was kind of like, what's going on, guys? Like, what's wrong? Like, I thought something was going on. And they were like, our parents are here. They're here to watch us play. And I was like, and I was kind of like, and okay. They're like, they never come. Our parents never come to watch us play. We actually have fans. Like, it was really cool to see, because they just got nervous because, they didn't usually have people come watch them. But I mean, I think we were 20, I don't know what we were that year. I don't know. We had more wins than we had losses, but I still keep in touch with those. There was 4 seniors that year, and I still keep in touch with that senior class. So that's pretty cool.
That's an incredible story there. You turned around that program, and then South Dakota State. Tell me about how that came about. What was it about South Dakota State you thought, hey, this is the right place for me at this time in my career to make this move?
Yeah. Well, I guess a lot of me was kind of like, a lot of those the old NCC, UNO and all that, they were going Division I and having that mid-major. And I was losing recruits to a lot of mid-major schools, being at Wayne. And, at Wayne, I was functioning with 2 scholarships. That's it, 2 scholarships. And I mean, my entire starting lineup probably didn't have 1 scholarship. And so I was kind of like, I feel like I've done what I can do here with what I have. And I am ready to make that next step and take that next challenge. And talking to the people up here, they were ready to put some different looks into the softball, whether it was scholarships and coach and staffing and all that. And I thought, it's still 3 hours from my family, it's still the Midwest, I can keep all my Midwest ties. And again, here I am trying to turn this around and leave some, when you leave somewhere, you want to leave it better than you found it. And I think that I was like, I had a lot of people tell me that I couldn't win here. Like, don't do it. You're not going to win there. It's too far north. Like, South Dakota doesn't have high school softball, like sanctioned high school softball. Don't do it. You can't win there. And, I actually, when people started telling me not to do it, it made me want to do it more, because I'm like, I want to take your challenge. But it took me a few years, a little bit longer to maybe make that change here, to flip it, to get us to win. But we're definitely on the right track now.
When was the turning point? When did you know that it was turning around? Was there a moment, a game, a season? Like, what was there a specific moment where you're like, yeah, that we're turning the corner?
Um, it was probably when my first recruiting class here was probably juniors, when they really started to develop and really not be afraid to take on those leadership roles. I feel like when we brought them in, they felt like they couldn't, like they were afraid to work hard. They were afraid to go in and do extra hitting and do those things because maybe they were looked at differently from the upperclassmen a little bit. But when they really started to take ownership of what we are and who we are and the Jackrabbit way of doing things, I knew we were on the right path. I just needed a class and some players to not be afraid to have the real buy-in.
Your recent success, you've been to the NIC twice, 18 and 19 there, back to back. What was that experience like to be in postseason?
You know, anytime you can make a postseason, it's a great experience. And it was a great experience for our program. I mean, you're playing teams that just quite didn't make the NCAA tournament, but it was a high caliber softball. South Dakota State, I know in 1996, they hosted, when they were Division II, hosted a regional here, but since then, I don't know if they've been to a postseason. So getting our team that experience and being there, playing after conference is over is a big deal. I mean, I don't care what you're playing in. I think it's a big deal. You're still one of so many teams in the nation playing. And I think that was really cool for our players.
When you play North Dakota State, that's one that people circle. That's become a must-see watch series that people tune into. What is it like competing against them? Obviously, they've had the success in the league and even in the NCAA. I mean, they've set their standard as well, and you're going after them. What has that been like, and those battles? Because you've had some classic matchups with them, and certainly will be continuing here moving forward.
Yeah, they're very disciplined, and they have good pitching, and they have speed, and they have power, and it's those games. Those are the type of games where you can't make any mistakes because they'll capitalize on them, and it's just fun to play because when we play them, we're usually the underdog, which is actually really cool because I like to be the underdog and go get the the big dog. But it's fun because that if you're hanging with those guys and you're beating those guys, that you're beating some of the best teams in the nation because they've beat some of the best teams in the nation. And so that's really cool to see.
Is there a bit of a chip? I don't know if it's a chip on the shoulder or hunger from your team because you've been that close. You've been close. You've been knocking to get to the NCAA. You might have, who knows? 2020 could have been that. Is that kind of a carryover to 2021? But hey, we got some unfinished business here.
Yeah, I feel as though, our team I felt like I was a little nervous because where are we going to start off this year? Where we left off, or are we going to start all over? And I feel like our team is like, you know what, we were on the right path last year. We're going to get back on the right path this year. And we're going to do our best, play our hardest, put in all the work so that at the end of the day, whatever happens, whether we make it or we don't, we can't say we didn't do what we needed to do. And, because again, you can't control if you hit a ball and someone, catches it over the fence or a line drive, we're going to give it our best effort at all times to try to get there. But that's something that's never been done here. And I think that's really cool because I think this team wants to be that team. That team wants to be the first. And I said, why not? Why not be the first team to make the NCAA tournament? Why not be the first team to win the Summitt League? It's never been done here. And so I think that's really cool for them is, they want to be the first, and they've been putting in the work and the time to do it.
Is that also part of the reason you mentioned that NIC experience playing in 18? You won some games. You made up in Greeley, Colorado before you lost to Loyola Marymount. You were in Ames, Iowa in 19. Was that also part of it to have that experience to say, look, this is what it's like in the postseason. This is what it's a taste of it. This is kind of learning how to win. Because I've had coaches that have been in the NIC. They've told me that that's really benefited them moving forward. Is that accurate with you as well?
I would 100% agree. Our team's never been to a postseason. So when we get there to the NCAA, I wouldn't act like we've been there. I don't want our team to just go 0-2. I want us to put up a fight. And I feel like having those experience in the NISC will help season us to have those opportunities to put up our best fight and not just be so maybe wide-eyed when we get there and like, oh my gosh, this is, and act like we've never been there. Well, we have never been there, but we need to act like we've been there.
You've coached at D2. You've played, obviously, Nebraska-Omaha. How did all that help you find, from a recruiting standpoint here at South Dakota State, maybe finding that diamond on the rough, maybe that player that gets overlooked in recruiting for various reasons. Has that experience you've gone through as a player and a coach helped you as a recruiter?
Yeah, it's weird because, I mean, there's some kids on our team, and I won't mention who they are, but where, you know, maybe people passed on them, but I just had this feeling about them, you know, like just watching their work ethic and just, you know, where I'm like, I'm going to take a chance on that kid because, you know, someone took a chance on me at some point. I was from a small town in Iowa, you know, that, you know, and even coaching wise, someone took a chance on me, but you know, you do make those connections playing by having played in the Midwest and now coached in the Midwest for the last, you know, 14, 15 years. You start to make connections with people that are like, hey, I know about this kid, and you know, like she doesn't play on a very good summer ball team, but I think she's good, and you can kind of go watch her and see, you know, could she develop into being someone at our level or not? And I guess that's where you have to try to filter all that stuff out. But you know, I don't try to just go always for the big flashy. I think it's important to have, you know, a mixture of kids on your team. You can't, I mean, if you have all kids from the big flashy summer ball teams and stuff, your culture and chemistry might not be that great because everybody thinks they should be playing.
That's right. And the intangibles too, right? There's certain intangibles that you can't, you know, in a recruit, you know, that you have to get a sense for in watching the player play or just talking to the player. And you could pick up on some things that you can't based on, you know, numbers or just, you know, get talent, right?
Like a team first, you want a team first player, you know, not someone that thinks that they're entitled to play because of who they played for or what's on the front of their jersey, but someone that's going to be in it for the team, for us, and will do whatever it takes to be, you know, and I always say it's a privilege to be on this team because there's a lot of people that would love to be on this team, and you get this opportunity, so be thankful for it. And, you know, you want someone that, the other thing is, and with recruiting, you know, there's a lot of kids that I've passed on just because, you know, maybe I was kind of like their number 2 or 3 choice, but I'm like, I want someone that really wants to be here, that really is bought into us. And I would take that kid over a kid maybe that's a little bit better than them that I have to beg to come here, you know? Yeah. I don't really like to do that. Like, I want someone to come here because they want to help us win. And, you know, early, you know, we had to find kids that wanted to help us flip the program. We had to find kids that would help us turn this program into a winner. And not everybody wants to do that because a lot of kids want to just go play for a team that's already winning. You know, they don't want to like help flip the program and take that chance. They want to go play for someone who's already got the W's on there. And so I think finding that balance is important.
Summitt League getting going. I think this is, from the outside, it looks like it's one of the more, I think, exciting anticipations of the year. Not just because obviously there wasn't no Summitt League last year, but so many interesting storylines. Your team's off to a fantastic start. Kansas City, right off the bat, that's a marquee series. Coach Shaw has done a fantastic job there. They've got marquee wins, beating an Oklahoma State, among others. You got a Western Illinois with Elisa Goler in her first year. You got Omaha in their second year with their staff, with Eberhardt there, and of course Tatum Edwards, the assistant, big name. Do you get it? I don't know, from the internal, do you sense that this league is kind of on the rise? There's a sense of excitement nationally here?
Yeah, I mean, I 100% think that this league is on the rise, just with, you know, the talent that these coaches are bringing in. And I think that's exciting to see because, you know, right now we don't get an at-large bid, but if we can continue to grow this league and get it to where it needs to be, I mean, just like our women's basketball team this year, they got an at-large bid to get into the NCAA. And if we can get all of our teams to that caliber and really make a name for the Summitt League, I think that'd be huge for us.
Last question for you. As you move forward now into conference play and beyond here this season, what's going to be the keys for your team to accomplish your internal goals?
Yeah, you know, we have we have goals and then we have our process, and, you know, a lot of our process is, you know, like control the controllables, and we're really focused on, you know, accepting your roles and having high energy. And I think in order for us to get where we need to be, we need to continue to grow, and we need to continue to learn from failure, from success. I think it's important to continue to grow as a team. And I will just say, like, our culture is grit, growth, resilience, integrity, and trust. And growth, like I just said, growing, and then being resilient in every situation, whether it's from a loss to a loss or a bad inning to the next inning, I think is going to be important to be able to bounce back quickly especially in those 4-game series that we're going to play. And then continuing to have integrity with all of our goals and our process, and to not veer from the path and to stay on it, whether we win or we lose, and to make sure we're always putting our best foot forward. And then just trusting each other and trusting the process of what we're doing, trusting the coaches and that what we're doing and the way we practice is preparing us to go play, different series. And I think that's what's cool. This week is the first time that we're actually going to practice, preparing for one team. We're going to prepare for UMKC, and we haven't really been able to hardly do that because when you play preseason, you play multiple teams. And so I think that'll be very different for my COVID freshmen from last year and my freshmen this year. I mean, we have 11 of them that haven't played a Summitt League game yet because they were freshmen last year or freshmen this year. And so understanding that now when we get into these series, we're really, really being strategic in how we pitch people and how we play defense and how we attack, different pitchers. So I think it'll be fun and it'll be a great experience for all of us. And I know we're ready for it.
Well, we're excited to see you all play there. Last question. You mentioned the Jackrabbits Way. For those that may not be familiar, describe what does that mean, the term Jackrabbits Way?
Yep. What we talk about when we talk about the Jackrabbit Way, we talk about grit, which I just talked about was our growth, resilience, integrity, and trust. And then just doing everything with integrity, whether you're in the classroom, in the community, standard right now. I mean, we have a brand new hitting facility in there and our kids are in there. I mean, they have access into there, they go hit and they put in their extra work whenever we're not around, and just making sure that they're on top of what we're doing academically. And then obviously right now, I mean, part of our Jackrabbit Way is making sure we're making good decisions off the field with all the COVID restrictions that we have to give us a chance to play every weekend. So the Jackrabbit Way is very much like our culture and how we do things and our standards and stuff. And our kids really have bought into that and have done a really good job with it.
Well, we hope that continues on and off the field. We wish you well. I appreciate you taking the time. I know it's a busy time getting ready for conference play, but, we've wanted to have you on with the success you're building there. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to do this again down the road.
I appreciate having it, and hopefully we'll talk again.